On November the 16th of 2018, Midland County Sheriff Scott Stevenson was arrested for drunk driving in Kalkaska County, Michigan. In a candid press release, Stevenson took full responsibility for his actions, admitting to consuming alcohol at a deer camp before driving in an attempt to get cell phone reception. Feeling the effects of the alcohol while behind the wheel, Stevenson pulled over and tried to contact individuals at the camp for help and ended up slumped over his steering wheel. A concerned passerby's call to the Kalkaska County Sheriff's Department led to his arrest for operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated. When he awoke to find a deputy at his car window, the sheriff was alarmed and embarrassed. He panicked, tried to tell the deputy who he was, and begged to be let go. Breathalyzer test results classified him as super drunk under local law, which is punishable by 180 days in jail on its own. Even so, Stevenson claimed to have only had 4 beers, then immediately failed a field sobriety test, further pointing to the possibility that he had consumed more than he was admitting to. Based on the evidence, the deputy arrested the sheriff for drunk driving. Following the arrest, Sheriff Stevenson expressed remorse for his actions, acknowledging that his poor decision not only impacted himself but also his family, the Midland County Sheriff's Office, and his constituents. He announced that he planned to plead guilty to the charge, recognizing that he failed to meet the standards he set for himself. Seeking guidance from a counselor, Stevenson aimed to determine if the incident would be an isolated one or if there were underlying issues requiring continued treatment. In December of 2018, Stevenson pleaded guilty to the OWI charge and was sentenced to a year of probation. Following his sentencing, Stevenson emphasized that his regrettable choice had created difficulties for his family and loved ones. The reporting on the matter is a little unclear, but it appears as if the sheriff remained in office after the incident. Number 8. Sheriff steals serious sums. In April of 2024, former Clark County Sheriff Jamie Noel, along with his wife Misty and daughter Casey, faced a slew of felony charges related to alleged misuse of taxpayer funds amounting to $5 million. The charges stem from extravagant expenditures on luxury items including vacations, vehicles, and cigars, using credit cards that Noel oversaw. Jamie Noel gained local prominence through his appearance on the popular reality series 60 Days In, which focuses on improving problematic and mismanaged jails. But Noel now finds himself on the other side of the law as he faces 25 felony offenses for financial misconduct. The family's spending spree reportedly included $56,000 on luxury cigars, $300,000 on travel, $25,000 on a chartered plane, and various other frivolous indulgences. Evidence gleaned from search warrants revealed the trail of lavish purchases, prompting the current legal case against the Noels, in addition to the allegations of misappropriation of funds and personal use of public assets. Noel is also facing accusations of an extramarital affair leading to a child. The Noels have pleaded not guilty to the charges, and their cases are ongoing. Number 7. Steve Whidden. In 2021, the sheriff's office in Hendry County, Florida, fell under scrutiny for hiring deputies with histories of misconduct, including racism, lying, fraud, and other serious offenses. Despite this, Sheriff Steve Whidden has allegedly continued to hire and retain deputies with problematic backgrounds, leading to ongoing issues within the agency. Instances of excessive force, false arrests, and failed prosecutions have been linked to deputies hired under Whidden, raising concerns about the agency's integrity and effectiveness. For example, one deputy hired by Whidden had previously lost her job with the Department of Children and Families for interfering with a Child Protective Services investigation. In another case, a deputy who had previously been fired from the sheriff's office for misconduct, was rehired by Whidden, only to kill the former mayor of the city he was patrolling during an argument resulting in a $10 million lawsuit. Whidden's hiring practices have led to legal challenges, with lawsuits and claims of negligence looming over the sheriff's office. Failure to prosecute cases, false arrest claims, and instances of misconduct have tarnished the agency's reputation and, according to some, have put the community at risk. Questions about the credibility and integrity of deputies, especially those in supervisory positions, have raised doubts about the agency's ability to serve and protect the county effectively. Despite this criticism and the agency's mounting legal problems, Whidden seemingly remains defiant, refusing to address the allegations and concerns raised about his deputy's conduct. As of this publication, he still presides over Hendry County as the sheriff, with apparently little public outcry over his habit of hiring and retaining proven bad cops. Number 6. Overmire turns over a new leaf. In 2021, Kyle Overmire, once Ohio's youngest sheriff at 34, shared the story of how he found himself battling substance abuse when the stress of his job and physical pain pushed him in a dangerous direction. Appointed as the Sandusky County Sheriff in 2008, Overmire's stress and attempts to manage pain spiraled into opioid dependency, which escalated into a full-blown addiction. He resorted to deceptive practices, including stealing pills from the sheriff's office. Overmire was eventually caught and charged, and pleaded guilty to obtaining drugs by deception, tampering with records, theft, and theft in office, resulting in a 4-year prison sentence. Transitioning from law enforcer to lawbreaker forced Overmire to confront his addiction directly. Reflecting on the situation, he acknowledged the challenges of maintaining the image of a sheriff while battling personal demons. Dr. Ron Rufo, a retired Chicago police officer and author, emphasized the culture of silence and toughness within law enforcement that inhibits officers from addressing their emotional struggles. This cycle, often starting as early as during training in police academies, can lead to tragic outcomes. To combat these issues, some law enforcement agencies are prioritizing mental health support for officers. In Columbus, the Police Wellness Bureau offers resources for officers to cope with trauma, stress, and addiction, promoting overall well-being and preventing potential harm to the community. Now an addiction advocate and motivational speaker, Overmire uses his experiences to support people in overcoming addiction. Number 5. School cop busts drunk sheriff. In December of 2023, Robertson County, Kentucky Sheriff Terry Gray was arrested for driving under the influence after driving his marked vehicle to a school. Surveillance camera captured the sheriff's patrol car arriving at the school with an intoxicated Gray behind the wheel, leading to a disagreement with the school resource officer, who noticed a strong odor of alcohol and contacted the Kentucky State Police. Records show that a pair of state troopers responded to the scene minutes later. During their conversation with the sheriff, they noticed that his speech was slurred. Yet for reasons that are unclear, the troopers decided to let Gray go. Gray left the school's property and was later found next to his vehicle at his Mount Olivet residence, exhibiting signs of impairment. A breathalyzer test revealed a blood alcohol content of 0.206, which is more than 2.5 times the limit for operating a motor vehicle. After admitting to consuming vodka earlier in the day, Gray was arrested, taken to the Robertson County Sheriff's Department and booked into custody at the Bourbon County Detention Center. Gray was due in court on January the 10th of 2024, but as of now, updates are not forthcoming. For now, the county sheriff's website still lists Gray as occupying the post. Number 4. A man and his iPhone. In May of 2020, police in Espanola, New Mexico, arrested Rio Arriba County Sheriff James Lujan after he refused to comply with the search warrant for his phone, suspected of containing evidence of interference with criminal cases. At the time, the Espanola police were investigating Lujan's alleged involvement in criminal matters concerning individuals like Espanola City Councilor John Vigil and repeat arrestee Philip Chacon. Lujan acted surprised about his arrest and insisted on consulting his attorney, which only heightened the suspicions against him. The case largely stemmed from accusations that Lujan helped criminal suspect Philip Chacon evade law enforcement after a high-speed chase in 2017. When Lujan was confronted by police and asked to hand over devices in compliance with a search warrant tied to the case, he was found to have withheld an iPhone, seen on multiple occasions in body cam footage from other officers. Allegations also arose that Lujan may have been drunk at the scene in at least one investigation that he participated in. Lujan's first trial ended in a hung jury in June of 2021, resulting in a mistrial. Further developments in the case led to his conviction and sentencing to 3 years in prison for aiding a felon and tampering with a witness. While handing down the sentence, Judge Kathleen Ellen Wood chastised Lujan for betraying the public trust in his capacity as an elected official. An appeal came later, but the judge struck it down, leaving Lujan to serve his full sentence. Number 3. Jimmy Stevens. In December of 2022, Sheriff Jimmy Stevens of Johnson County, Arkansas, was arrested in Crawford County on suspicion of drug and weapon charges. The arrest came after oxycodone, hydrocodone, marijuana, and other drugs were found in Stevens's patrol car. The discovery was made during a corruption and narcotics investigation with help from an FBI surveillance team. Stevens was charged with speeding, possession of controlled substances, and possession of drugs and firearms. His admission to receiving the drugs from a couple led to their arrest as well, with authorities discovering drugs and firearms in the couple's home. Despite the legal turmoil, Stevens remained in his position as sheriff, with Chief Deputy Jeremy Bennett taking charge of day-to-day operations. On October the 25th of 2023, Stevens pleaded guilty to felony possession of hydrocodone. As part of a plea agreement, he received a 6-year suspended prison sentence and was fined $10,000 plus additional fees. The court mandated his resignation as sheriff and the surrender of his law enforcement certificate. Today's topic was requested by Meatloaf 1973 and Mr. Thick Dicks. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. The Gangster Sheriff. In April of 2024, a deputy sheriff in San Bernardino County, California, was charged with multiple felonies stemming from his alleged association with an outlaw motorcycle gang. During a months-long investigation into 45-year-old Christopher Bingham's suspected criminal activity, he was seen riding his motorcycle alongside 2 known biker gang members. Investigators conducted a traffic stop and found a loaded, unregistered gun in Bingham's possession. He was immediately arrested and detained. While executing a search warrant at Bingham's residence, detectives from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Office Gang and Narcotics Division discovered a cache of 160 firearms, including a fully automatic assault rifle equipped with a grenade launcher. The search also yielded silencers, a stolen SBSD shotgun, and gang-related paraphernalia, among other things. Prosecutors charged Bingham with grand theft, participation in a criminal street gang, and weapon-related counts for possession of a machine gun, a short-barreled rifle, a stolen firearm, and silencers. He remains in custody in lieu of $500,000 bail while the district attorney reviews the case and determines the next steps. You think these sheriffs were bad? Well then, let's find out exactly how bad things can get when taking the law into your own hands goes wrong. Coming up right after number 1. Number 1. His favorite deputy. In July of 2018, 48-year-old Texas County, Missouri Sheriff James Sigmund and his chief deputy, 38-year-old Jennifer Tomaszewski, were arrested on charges stemming from alleged misconduct. Sigmund reportedly allowed Tomaszewski, with whom he was romantically involved, to work in a law enforcement capacity before she was certified. Tomaszewski was also accused of bringing a minor to work at the county jail multiple times. The charges against Sigmund and Tomaszewski included felony assault, endangerment of a child, misuse of a weapon, impersonation, and misuse of official information. Tomaszewski was hired in 2016 and became chief deputy without being a licensed peace officer until 2018. Allegations stated that she engaged in questionable activities, including using the jail as a childcare facility for her child and participating in potentially dangerous operations. There were also multiple accounts of Tomaszewski threatening and assaulting inmates, and Sigmund was implicated for being aware of or present during these incidents without intervening. In December of 2021, Sigmund and Tomaszewski were convicted of forgery and each sentenced to 3 years of probation, with the other charges being dropped due to a lack of evidence. Englishwoman Rachel Fulstow went on a date with a man named Liam Smith in York in 2019. The couple had intercourse at a hotel and they went for lunch the following day, but the relationship never went further. In 2021, Fulstow started dating Michael Hillier, a man in his late 30s who was involved in a large-scale cannabis operation. He reportedly didn't like the fact that Fulstow had done a one-night stand with Smith, whom he didn't know. The woman convinced Hillier in graphic detail that the man had abused her. That aspect, however, was never confirmed. Evidence indicated that from that point on, over the course of 10 months, the couple jointly planned to murder Smith. Hillier would later tell a court, "We decided to deal with the matter ourselves and seek justice ourselves and go down the vigilante route." He cited as a motivating factor the statistic that only 1.6% of assault and abuse cases make it to court. Hillier would also state that Fulstow saw him as kind of like her knight in shining armor. After they'd begun planning the killing, Fulstow researched Smith on the internet while her boyfriend bought firearms online and practiced shooting in his cellar. On November the 2nd of 2022, Hillier carried out reconnaissance at Smith's home in the village of Shelvington, Greater Manchester. The cloned license plate on his Mitsubishi Shogun with the number R22ORA would become instrumental in the investigation that followed, as it was captured on CCTV. Hillier returned to the address a few weeks later on November the 24th. On that day, Fulstow had reportedly packed her boyfriend a lunchbox with food supplies as well as hydration tablets, headache tablets, and diazepam. Hillier waited in his vehicle for 10 hours for Smith to return and was captured on CCTV outside his home. He'd gone near the house because he was unsure his target was inside. Upon spotting Smith, he returned to the Shogun, which 38-year-old Smith approached shortly afterward. Hillier opened the door and confronted him over the alleged abuse, later telling the court, "He knew exactly what I was talking about." Hillier then blasted the man in the face with a shotgun before pouring sulfuric acid and soda crystals on his body. He and Fulstow then took a 2-week vacation to Jamaica. As the investigation progressed, South Yorkshire police contacted their Manchester colleagues and revealed they'd stopped a vehicle 3 weeks before Smith's killing that had the R22ORA plates inside. The information ultimately led the police to Hillier. Upon their return to the UK, he and Fulstow were successively arrested for murder in January and February of 2023. The woman would claim that she'd only found out about the killing after it had been committed and claimed she was petrified to go to the police. However, the evidence, coupled with Hillier's reports of the fact that she'd changed her story multiple times, made her account unreliable. Investigators determined that her role was not only to conduct online research on the victim, but also to provide Hillier with an alibi and source the corrosive substances used on the body. Adding to the flimsiness of her denial were disturbing photos showing the couple enjoying their holiday and laughing as they were riding horses in the Caribbean Sea in the killing's aftermath. In August of 2023, the couple were found guilty of murder, with Fowler also being found guilty of perverting the course of justice. Outbursts from the victim's family in the public gallery resulted in the pair being called monsters and told to rot in hell. Hillier was jailed for life and would serve at least 33 years, while Fowler was given a minimum term of 30 years. Number 6. Richard Paul Warner. In 2017, Australian man Richard Paul Warner, at the time in his early 40s, took it upon himself to become a hunter of men, looking to have inappropriate contact with minors. The Adelaide man was reportedly fueled by personal trauma he'd suffered as a child. He would lure the men with fake profiles and then conduct citizen arrests. Warner provided videos of the confrontations to a YouTube channel without concealing his targets' identities. As per South Australian law, the identity of people charged with such offences was not to be publicly released until they pleaded guilty or were committed to stand trial. In one of the confrontations, Warner was shown roughing up a man by grabbing his shirt. While reporting on his operations, the father of one wore a superhero-style mask. He was eventually arrested by the police on charges of aggravated assault, 2 counts of using a carriage service to menace, harass or cause offense, and 1 count of publishing the identity of a person charged with being an offender. Detective Chief Inspector Wayne Overmire had stern words for the vigilantes' actions, insisting for the public to let the police do their job and not take the law into your own hands in relation to any criminal matter. In November of 2018, Warner pleaded guilty to using a carriage service in a harassing or offensive way. He ultimately avoided jail and was placed on a $200 good behavior bond for 12 months. Standing outside the courthouse in January of 2019, Warner told the media that it was up to the public to decide if his actions were criminal, stating, "When the law is wrong, I think the right thing is to stick by your conscience." Number 5. Adam White. In February of 2019, career criminals Taylor Benford and Ryan Paul, both aged 23, in his 4x4 Mercedes. During the pursuit, Benford and Paul were thrown from the motorcycle. They sustained serious injuries, including a fractured skull, bleeding on the brain, and broken bones. White would claim he'd lost control of his vehicle when coming round the bend, but the police believed he'd intentionally run the duo off the road. He was arrested on the spot on suspicion of causing grief. Benford and Paul were asked to voluntarily attend interviews at the police station. They subsequently pleaded guilty to attempted burglary at Luton Crown Court and were given suspended sentences and 200 hours of community service. White, who unlike the duo had no prior convictions, was given a 22-month jail sentence at the same court, with a judge telling him he shouldn't have taken the law into his own hands. The case attracted considerable attention after being featured in an episode of 24 Hours in Police Custody. Many viewers were outraged over what they perceived as a grave miscarriage of justice, with some describing the sentencing disparity as blood-boiling and sickening, with another user contending the justice system is an absolute joke. After being jailed in February, 34-year-old White was released with an ankle monitor. Lindsay's pregnancy, while under mounting financial pressure, there was an outpouring of public support for the man in the aftermath, and by early December of 2022, a GoFundMe entitled "Give Adam White Justice" had raised over $160,000 in less than a week. Number 4. Charlie Fowler. 28-year-old Indiana woman Charlie Fowler was arrested in the summer of 2018 following an incident at the Diamond and Nail Spa in Valparaiso. Fowler, a children's therapist, was reportedly dissatisfied with her $30 manicure. She refused an offer to have the work redone and left without paying. As employees were calling the police, the woman got into her white BMW and tried to leave. Salon worker Fee Hung Nguyen then ran after her vehicle. He clung to the hood and was dragged for about 40 feet through the parking lot. When the officers arrived at the scene, Nguyen complained of pain to his hand and leg, but officers reported no visible injuries on him. Fowler claimed that she'd intended to wait for the police in her car but decided to drive off because nail salon employees had begun banging on her window. She was arrested and charged with criminal recklessness and misdemeanor theft for not paying the manicure fee. The former charge was dropped, however, after the police reviewed surveillance footage from the lot. Number 3. Patrick Drum. On June the 22nd of 2012, Washington man Patrick Drum went to the home of 28-year-old Gary Lee Blanton in rural Sequim, Washington. Drum gunned down Blanton and returned the following day to execute his housemate, 57-year-old Jerry Wayne Ray. Blanton had been convicted in 2001 for having consensual intercourse with a high school freshman while he was a senior. Ray had been jailed in 2002 for having had relations with 2 minors. The men were each registered as level 2 offenders, which entailed that the state believed they presented a moderate risk of recidivism. In the aftermath of the double murder, it would emerge that Blanton's wife had received a text from Drum, a man with whom her husband had been friends for 8 years, saying that they'd gone camping. The text made Drum, who lived in the same neighborhood as his victims, the primary suspect, and a manhunt was launched. The police subsequently found his abandoned rental car with a note that included an apology and a full confession. Drum, who had a tattoo that read "Win Some" on his right forearm and one that spelled "Lose Some" on the left, was taken into custody after a few hours. He readily confessed to the arresting officers that killing the 2 men was something that had to be done, while also admitting that he'd been planning on driving to another county and killing a 3rd offender. The murders drew mixed reaction from the locals, some of whom regarded Drum as a hero and others that saw him as a cold-blooded murderer. His supporters were reported to have begun harassing the families of his victims. Drum pleaded guilty to the murders in July of 2012. During a final statement before his sentencing, the man claimed that he'd never intended to hurt his victims' families, calling them collateral damage and asking his supporters to leave them alone. While referring to Blanton and Ray, Drum contended their actions speak louder than words. He was handed down 2 life sentences without parole, plus several years for burglary and unlawful possession of a weapon by a felon. Number 2. Melissa Rodriguez. On June the 1st of 2023, a Florida woman was arrested on multiple charges after she'd cyberstalked and assaulted her ex-boyfriend, whose name wasn't disclosed, by Broward County law enforcement. The man had broken up with 21-year-old Melissa Rodriguez in late 2022 and blocked her on all social media platforms, in addition to instructing his cell phone provider to restrict texts and calls from unknown numbers. In February, Rodriguez trespassed into the gated Monarch Station community in Coconut Creek looking for her ex and was banned from returning on the premises. Over the months that followed, she continued calling him from different phones, but the man refused to communicate with her. Enraged by the perceived injustice, Rodriguez decided to dish out her own brand of punishment. On May the 29th, the young woman snuck into the community and approached her ex as he was getting into his vehicle. She prevented him from closing the driver's side door and sprayed an unknown substance into his eyes. The attack, which Rodriguez had likely carried out with pepper spray, left the victim with extreme burning, severe redness, irritation, and a temporary loss of vision. His injuries were treated by a team from Coconut Creek Fire Rescue. After the victim shared his story with responding police, Rodriguez was arrested at her place of employment, the Hard Rock Hollywood Hotel, and taken to the county jail. Number 1. Luis Salvador Rodriguez. In the spring of 2015, following an impromptu trial, angry locals from villages in the Banos del Inca district of South Peru punished a man they suspected of stealing their sheep. After roughly 80 sheep had disappeared, villagers narrowed their amateur investigation down to 20-year-old Luis Salvador Rodriguez. Upon being apprehended, the latter claimed he wasn't to blame and that he'd been working for a gang led by a taxi driver calling himself Colorado. The name was familiar to locals, but Vigilante Lucrecio Villagallado later told the media that it made no difference, concluding that since they'd caught Rodriguez, he was the man who would be punished. Sheep were a vital resource for the villagers' survival, and they perceived the thefts as an attack on their livelihood. A self-appointed court was put together that quickly found Rodriguez guilty. The villagers dragged the man outside, bound him, stripped him of his top, and took turns whipping him with a piece of birch. Photos of the punishment later surfaced on social media, and some users voiced their support, with one writing, "Very well done. beating him in front of everyone is a good punishment. Maybe that'll teach him. The police subsequently launched an investigation into the matter and publicly condemned the villagers' vigilante behavior. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get in trouble with a drunk sheriff or a corrupt one? Let us know in the comments section below.